I'm Mujib MEHRDAD. I am coming from Afghanistan. I am teaching in a university. I'm teaching Persian literature, and also I'm working for a TV channel as a journalist. And that's all I do. In countries in war, for the people who are young, in my age, and I started writing and reading when I was very young. So when there is no hobby, the writing is the best thing, and especially the reading poetry and novel was the best thing we had to be entertained. So I think being writer in a country at war is the first thing is very important, that you can you can enjoy your being as a human being by reading, and that's the only thing you have in that situation that keeps you happy, that keeps you entertained, and that keeps you precious as a human being, because war can turn everybody in a killer. So you have to have connection with some values to not lose your real identity as a human being. It's my motherland. All of my memories are there, and of course for me it is very hard to live far from that place. So for a writer, the first thing about his homeland is he belongs to that place, and emotionally, and despite all problems. Afghanistan is a country, the people are very flexible, but the only thing bad about Afghanistan is it's located in a specific geopolitical location that has been always in war in all our history. We have been battlefield. Iran and Pakistan are fighting, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and India with Iran. Those wars are not belongs to our people. We are only living in a battlefield. It's the worst thing about that. First, I was living in a small village. I was studying religious in a religious school. I was very conservative and fanatic. Then I came to Kabul. There was a Marxist family, my brother-in-law. I came to live with my sister to study. So we had a basement. There was a library there. During the Taliban, I started studying. For example, all the cover of our books were changed. For example, it was Capital. At the cover there was another name too. Maybe we thought that maybe Taliban when they will come and they will burn all our library. So I start, because my sister was studying, my brother-in-law they were all educated and they were studying. I start studying from that basement, and I found out literature, and I fall in love with literature, and it starts how I start my writings. I have published 4 books, and they are all in poetry. I have written TV dramas, TV series, and 2 of them has been displayed in Afghanistan, famous TV channel Tulu TV. And also I have written plays, and I have good stories that are complete for writing novels, and I want to write novels. I have 4 complete story in my mind, and maybe I will return from here, from the residency, I will start writing him. I start reading with Russian literature, novels and poetry, and I fall in love with Pushkin and especially the futurist poets like Pasternak and like Mayakovsky and Akhmatov other stream. And I start studying with them. And now I was in Afghanistan known by a person that he is familiar with word literature, because I had lots of translations from all over the world. I really want to experience the taste of literature in every part of the world. And it gives me a kind of diversity in my work. And I learned lots of techniques. And it was very good for me. Lots of possibilities for writing and lots of point of views to looking. For example, I was influenced by Anabas of Sanjan Prince. I was influenced by Westland, and from different countries I collected texts that made my poetry very specific. It means different. I was accused by his poetry as a kind of translation-like poetry, but it was not right, because my poetry was, from in terms of taste, it was not similar with the common taste in my country. So it was why they said, "Oh, you're like translation of word poetry." There are lots of good writers in my country, better than Khaled Hosseini, but they are not, unfortunately, has been introduced. But I want to introduce a writer who is Rahnavard Zaryab. He wrote a book by the name of Gulnar and the Mirror, a novel which made him very famous. He's an old man, but that is the most beautiful work of him. The story is the story of a woman in the past who has danced in front of the mirror as much as his picture in the mirror fall in the ground. It means he is competing with herself in the mirror, and he defeat her picture in the mirror, and all the other generations that comes, and it is based on the history of Afghanistan, period by period. They want to dance in the front of the mirror and defeat their picture, but they cannot. They say, okay, but it is impossible. It has been possible. It has happened once. So we have to keep trying. So it is how the novel continues, and it's, I think, the most meaningful novel written in this decade that U.S. soldiers have been in Afghanistan. I think he has to do that. In my country, unfortunately, in last decade, there wasn't any support from the state. We are publishing our works by our own money, and it is every other writers do in Afghanistan. But during the communist regime, there was a huge money for writers. 1,000 books were published by the Ministry of Information and Culture. But nowadays, there are private and social society foundations that they are running the electoral programs. They are collecting all the writers, and the government turned his face to the politics, to the war, and he has forgotten about the literature, unfortunately. Being in United States is a surprise for me, because I'm coming from a backwarded country, but I'm very happy that first I didn't went to the big cities, and I came to a city that reminds me of the place that I was born in Afghanistan, and my father was a farmer, so when I see the cornfields, it is beautiful. I feel very close to this place, maybe than the very modern cities. And the most important thing for me was the peace. Peaceful cities, peaceful streets. In my country, if you walk in it is the daily sense I want to tell you. If you sit in a taxi, you think that the next taxi is a suicide bomber. So it is the feeling that you have always, because in every week there is a suicide explosion in Kabul. So the fear is very horrible thing. You are always living with fear of death. So, but here you do not have that feeling, and your mind is very calm, that you can focus and study and read. Thanks from the people that they are paying attention to the literature. I think literature can save the world, and literature can give the people peace, solidarity, and love. Thank you very much from your inviting us to this program.
Thank you.
I'm Mujib MEHRDAD. I am coming from Afghanistan. I am teaching in a university. I'm teaching Persian literature, and also I'm working for a TV channel as a journalist. And that's all I do. In countries in war, for the people who are young, in my age, the first thing is very important, that you can enjoy your being as a human being by reading, and that's the only thing you have in that situation that keeps you happy, that keeps you entertained. And I started writing and reading when I was very young. So when there is no hobby, the writing is the best thing, and especially the reading poetry and novel was the best thing we had to be entertained. So I think being a writer in a country at war is, and that keeps you precious as a human being, because war can turn everybody in a killer. So you have to have connection with some values to not lose your real identity as a human being.